I don't remember Percy Nobbs personally, but I do remember that he was the father of Phoebe Nobbs, who lived across the street from us when we lived in Rose Cottage in Como. And I do remember seeing him a few times, but not very often. But I really found out about him when I started to study architecture.
Oh, I knew him very well. I had as close a relationship to him as I guess I could have had to a man of his temperament and the era in which he lived. I'm Peter Nobbs. I'm the only grandchild of Percy. His two children were Phoebe and Frank, and I'm descended from Frank. Frank was my father.
Percy was born in Scotland. He spent his first few years in Haddington and moved to St. Petersburg in Russia. And then he returned to Scotland for school. He did his master's in arts at the University of Edinburgh. In 1896, after graduating, Percy trained or apprenticed with Robert Lorimer, one of the most well-known architects of the day. And Lorimer specialized in the arts and crafts movement. So that, of course, had a huge impact on his approach to design for the rest of his life. In 1903, Percy was introduced to William Peterson, principal of McGill University, and he invited him to become the MacDonald Professor of Architecture at McGill.
He was invited as a new dean at McGill by the other deans to parties and invited into their homes. His future father-in-law was the Dean of Medicine. And I think it was when he went to the Dean of Medicine's house that he met Cecil. I think when he was courting Cecil, he came out here to Greenwood and to Kansataki. He got to know the place pretty well and the people.
It's possible that Cecil was attracted to Percy Nobbs because he was not only a very successful architect and a good-looking man, but also a good sportsman.
He used to fence a lot. He lived in an era when duels were out and fencing was in as an alternative. He was at the 1908 Olympics. And he was going to go as an Olympic, it was going to be an Olympic sport for the first time. And would have been an Olympic hero had it been an accepted sport.
Percy and Cecil were married in 1909 in Como.
Percy was going to build a house for them to live in. He started drawing up plans and painting pictures and assembled a whole lot of stone and had it all delivered to the site. When he got back from Valcartier after the war, the stone was all gone. The city of Westmount had used it to build the roadbed. So the house is now of brick rather than of stone, as it originally planned to be. Because of Percy's Olympic prowess, he was asked to go to Valcartier to train the troops in physical exercises, PT, physical training, before they went overseas. And that's as close as he ever got to action in the First World War. He was stuck in Valcartier for most of it.
Right from the start, Percy always insisted on combining his teaching with his practice. And this would allow him to really get the students involved in real projects and also to share his knowledge of the day-to-day practice of an architect with his students, which made him stand apart from many other professors who had never practiced in their life.
Oh, one of the things that Peterson promised him when he got to McGill was that McGill was going to grow and that Percy, as the resident architect, would do the buildings.
And so almost right away, he asked the principal if he could get involved in some of the building for the campus, and got involved as a first project in the design of the McGill Student Union, which is now the McCord Museum. All 4 facades were out of Montreal limestone, and as much attention was invested in the detailing of the sides and rear of the building as in the facade.
He always said his best best building at McGill was the Students' Union. But he thought that was, as a unit of architecture at McGill, that was probably the best thing he'd done.
Percy Nobbs' architectural practice was extremely diverse. He was involved in the design of a large number of private homes, both in the city and outside the city, country homes and city homes. He was also responsible for the design of a number of institutional buildings, such as those for McGill, and quite a few schools, in particular in the 19-teens, around 1910. The schools were designed to be very functional and economical, but Percy managed to incorporate all sorts of amazing brickwork details into their facades. And here, for example, we see the integration of two different tones of brick and a motif up at the parapet level. There were also some stone elements, some classical elements, in particular on the main facade. And then, of course, the terracotta emblems with the little girls doing various activities, reading, writing, and I think that's playing an instrument. Among the most well-known and, in fact, the most intact buildings on the McGill campus is the Pathological Institute. It's a very, very handsome building in limestone with all sorts of artistic embellishments here and there, as well as special windows and moldings and so on. In 1921, he designed an extension to the Redpath Library, which is one of his finest works. One aspect of Percy Nobbs' work that is often overlooked is his interest in urban planning. When he arrived at McGill, one of his first projects was to design a new plan of the campus. And it was quite well received because he retained the arts building, which previous plans for the campus had eliminated completely because it was getting dilapidated, but it was nevertheless the oldest building on campus. Percy had quite a profound knowledge of heraldry, and that was illustrated in many of his projects. In fact, he even designed the McGill University crest. But every single architectural project, including private homes, institutional buildings, office buildings like the McGill like the Drummond Medical Building, had some illustration of his knowledge of heraldry or some other kind of symbolism in its design.
I know that Percy's forte was design. I guess he taught a lot of those courses, and he assembled other people who he had as professors to work under him. He wasn't a very good director of people. He had too bad a temper for that. He didn't suffer fools at all lightly, and he would turn a lot of people off unless they were willing to put up with his antics.
I've had the occasion to talk to a few people who were students of Percy Nobbs, and all of them confirmed that he was extremely exigeant, very demanding, and quite stern. He was known for his temper, but he was also known for his very high standards and high expectations of his students. And he was greatly respected by most people who had the opportunity to work with him as professors or also to be his students.
Percy, he used to stamp his foot too, and I think that he needed some physical outlet for his temper. I had good memories of him, but he also was a tyrant. I seem to sneak underneath that. He never yelled at me much. Can't remember ever yelling at me, but he yelled at a lot of people.